Good morning, everybody, whether you're joining us here in person. I see a lot of faces this morning or online. We are so glad you're here with us. I'm Michelle Bonniwell, our Director of Kids Ministries, and I just wanted to take a moment before we get the service started to say hello. Now, I know this weekend is a big football weekend. I actually see some of you guys with your Packers gears on. They had a big win last night, didn't they? Awesome. So here's what I want to know from you guys. If you could have your dream Super Bowl, whether it be people who are currently playing for the playoffs or not, who would that be? Who would be your two teams that would be in your dream Super Bowl? This morning, I know we had a bunch of people say Packers versus Chiefs, and they would want the Chiefs to win. We're going to have a talk with some of you guys about that. As you know, most of the church staff are Packers fans. But anyway, let me know who your dream Super Bowl would be. Now, today we're going to continue with our series, The Challenge. And I want to encourage you guys, if you have not picked up your journal, your reflection and prayer journal, grab one of those. We have some here available at the church, or you can download it at weomaha.com/thechallenge. You can also find it in our app under the sermon series, The Challenge. Be sure to do that, whether you're just starting today or you've been doing it since last Monday. It is a great resource for you guys and a great way to just spend time with God every single day. Now, we're going to get started here in just a few minutes, so grab your journals, your Bibles, your coffee. You guys here in the audience, get comfortable, and we'll get started right at 10:30.
Edge.
But he says to him, and like this is the important thing he says to him, if your heart, is your heart right with my heart as mine is with yours? And Jehonadab answered, it is. And Jehu said, if it is, then give me your hand. So Jehonadab gave him his hand, and Jehu took him up into the war wagon, or some translations say the chariot, and they moved forward. So let's just do this. So Karen, you're sitting in the second row, and Karen and I have actually talked about some issues, and there's some things that we don't agree on. And it's like me going up to Karen and saying, Karen, we don't quite see the world totally the same. But is your heart with my heart? Is my heart as with your heart? Then give me your hand. And if I asked Karen that question, she would give me her hand, and we would move forward together, right? And it's like I don't get why this is so hard. I don't understand why, so these two guys, they had their clans had a past. He said, I'm willing to put this behind me. I'm willing to put, this goofball belief you have behind me, and if your heart is with my heart, as my heart is with your heart, then give me your hand. And they did that. They got in the chariot, and they went forward together. So Wesley, he says this, seriously, if you're having problems with people on social media, if you get all bent out of shape about stuff, take a picture of this one. Wesley says, though we cannot think alike, may we not love alike. May we not be of one heart, though we're not of one opinion. Without doubt, we may. One of the things I love about this church most is that we're not all the same. I talk to y'all. I know that we have, progressives that want to see many things change. I know that we have, conservatives that, love the Bible, and they love people. And, the beautiful thing is is your heart with my heart, like my heart is with your heart? If it is, then give me your hand.
morning, church. Thanks for joining us here this morning for worship. My name's Leandra. I'm one of the pastors here. And for the new year, we've got a lot of new things going on and starting. I noticed this morning there's a lot more 8th graders here than usual, so it must be the first Sunday of confirmation. That's going to start later this afternoon, so it's exciting to have all you guys here. We've got a bunch of We University classes that are going to start the first week of February. There's in-person classes and Zoom classes, so you can find whatever works for you. We're going to have Financial Peace University. That's always a really popular one. Women's Studies, other things. And then one of our new classes that we just started last fall, it's called Churches That Heal. And this is a class that talks about mental health. It talks about what Jesus has to say to us and gives us a community to deal with those things. It's a really cool new class. And this is stuff that all of us deal with at some point, feelings of, depression, anxiety, fear, anger, guilt, shame. Those are all the things that the class covers and talks about, and how can we deal with those things, and how can we start to live the way that God wants us to live. So if that's something that you're struggling with, if that's something you're dealing with, Churches That Heal is a great community, a great class to go through. That's going to start the first week of February. For those of you that are new or visiting with us, or maybe you've been new and visiting for a while, but you haven't quite got connected, we have 2 classes here to help you kind of get plugged in at the water's edge. The first one is called Starting Point. So just like the name says, this is where to start. This is kind of the intro to Water's Edge, get to know us, find some places where you can serve and grow and be in community. That's going to be on Sunday, January 31st. And this is going to be our first starting point that we're going to do virtually. So we're actually going to meet over Zoom. So those of you watching online that, haven't gotten a chance to connect with us personally, I know some of you have been watching now for months, almost going on a year, and maybe you've never even been in this building. So we're going to do a virtual starting point. We still want to get to know you. You're still a part of our church, so we'd love to have you join us for that. The whole staff will be on there. You can ask any questions you want, and then we'll talk about how you can get more plugged in here. And then if you're ready to take the next step after that and become a member here at the Water's Edge, we have our membership class called We Explore. That's actually going to be on this Thursday. There's still time to sign up. That'll be in person at the church. We'll talk about the history of the church, our beliefs. You'll hear about anything and everything we have going on here. And then we'll also talk about what does it mean to be a member here at the Water's Edge. And you'll have a chance at the end of the class to actually become a member here. So if you are new and visiting, or maybe you've been going here for a few years, but you've never actually gone through the membership class, we would love to have you join us and become members here at the Water's Edge. So today, Pastor Craig is going to be talking about prayer. We're continuing that challenge series that we started last week, and the band is going to kick us off with this really beautiful song, and this song is really a prayer. So as we get ready to worship, I invite you to pray along with the lyrics of this song, or pray along on your own, whatever's on your heart this morning, and let's prepare to worship.
My soul, remember redemption's hill where your blood was spilled for my ransom, and everything I once held dear I count it all. Lead me to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, I lay me down. Rid me of myself, I belong to you. No, lead me to the cross. As I tempted and tried, you were human. The Word became flesh, bore tell zero, I count it all as loss. Lead me to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, I lay me down. Rid me of myself, I belong to you. Oh, lead me to your heart, to your heart. Lead me to your heart. Lead me to your heart. Lead me to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, I lay me down. Rid me of myself, I belong to you. Lord, lead me to the cross.
Letting go of every single dream, I lay each one down at your feet. Every moment of my wandering never changes what you see. I tried to win this war, I confess. My hands are weary, I need your rest. Mighty warrior, king of the fight. No matter what I face, you're by my side. When you don't move the mountains, I'm needing you to move. When you don't part the waters, I wish I could walk through. When you don't give me answers, as I cry out to you, I will trust in you. Truth is, you know what tomorrow brings. There's not a day ahead you have not seen. So in all things, seem alive and breath. I want what you want more than nothing less. When you don't move the mountains, I'm needing you to move. When you don't part the waters, I wish I could walk through. When you don't give me answers, as I cry out
All right, prayer. All earthly things with earth will fade away, but prayer grasps eternity. But I'm convinced of this: God does not hear prayer. He hears desperate prayer. Prayer is not a position whether you kneel. Prayer is not a position, it's a disposition. You get to the place where you'd rather sweat, you'd rather weep in His presence than laugh in anybody else's presence. You'd rather God whisper a secret into your heart that breaks you than somebody give you the prizes that all the world covets. Prayer is almost the greatest human privilege that we have.
Hey, I'm Craig Finstead, one of the pastors here. Welcome. It's really cool to see people that are coming back for the first time since March. Just blessing to see your faces. It's a blessing to talk to you. Some of you are brand new to the congregation, never been here before, so welcome to you. All of you online, thanks for watching, wherever you are, whether it's here in Omaha or wherever, just grateful you're here. There's a few times today I'm going to ask you to kind of share some stuff in the comment section, so it's one of the ways you can worship together. We're talking about prayer. Middle of a 4-week series called The Challenge. So last week we passed out a little workbook. We have more of those workbooks here, so technically you should be 1/3 of the way through it. But if you weren't here last week, just pick it up. Just start on day 7 today, and 7 out of 21 days is going to be better than 0 out of 21 days if you picked it up last week. Had good intentions, it didn't quite work out. Like, just start today. 7 out of the 21 days is better than 0 out of the 21 days. For those of you online, go to weomaha.com/thechallenge, and all the information you need is there, the daily devotionals, the 21 questions that Wesley asked, a prayer prompt, Bible reading every day. There's house church questions for reflection within families or even individuals. So my oldest son started college last year, so he's a sophomore this year, and I remember moving him in, and so he moved here when we were 4 years old. That's the year I started the church. He's 19 now. So he went to the Miller schools his entire career. Now, one of the things I always tried to protect him from, at least a little bit, is being a pastor's kid. I think especially in small towns, that there can be some stigmatism that goes with that. And he did get some of it here. So like a lot of times, he'd have teachers or whoever, oh, you're Craig's son, and I never wanted him to primarily be Craig's son because he's just unique, and just like your kids. For those of you who are kids, unique, creative, he's himself, and I didn't want him to be a preacher's kid. I wanted him to be Benjamin. So we go to Northfield, Minnesota. Now, if you can believe this, my celebrity does not quite go to Northfield, Minnesota. In fact, it doesn't really go past east of 156th Street, for those of you who are counting. So we're putting the lofts together, so the kids have more room in their dorms, and there's 4 of us dads that are trying to, figure this out. And the conversation comes up, well, what do you do for a living? So this guy, I'm a CEO of a bank in Minnesota, and I'm a computer programmer from Seattle, and I'm a surgeon from Nashville. And everyone's listening, what do you do? Well, what do I do about this one? I could say I'm a comedian because I did that comedy thing that one night, and I wouldn't have been lying. I could have said I'm an author because I have written a book, and I got a blog too. But I said I was in sales. So then the question comes up. So what do you sell? I said I sell the greatest product ever. Now where's that wrench? So I'm a salesperson. I sell Jesus, and I'm going to sell Jesus until the day I die because I believe Jesus is the best. He's not a product, but I believe that Jesus is the best thing that's out there today. It's the best thing that was out there last year. It's the best thing that'll be out there any day. There's nowhere else to get the forgiveness of sins. There's nowhere else to get this kind of hope in a dark world. There's no one. If we all, everybody, the entire world, followed the teachings of Jesus, we wouldn't have 100% of the problems that we have. Now, today's a tough sell. So I'm trying to sell you this morning a free product that will change the way you live. You can't buy this on Amazon. You're not going to find it at your local gym you go to. There's something no person can provide for you. Now, in fact, like it's a tough sell, but in fact, like you're actually going to agree with basically everything I say this morning. I guess, yeah, that makes sense. He's right. Yeah, he's got it. Some of you not only are going to agree with everything I say, you're going to leave here thinking, I have good intentions to put into practice what Craig talked about this morning because I can see where this would make my life better. But then you're going to pull your cars into Hawthorne or Bellbrook or Falling Waters or Cattail Creek or Aspen Creek or wherever you live. And what I'm selling you is not going to take. So Jesus is what I sell, and the specific product that I have this morning is called prayer. We're going to be talking about prayer specifically in the Wesleyan Methodist tradition over the next few weeks. And so last night, I did not do this sermon. I did just part of this sermon. Last night in the kids' large group area where we have our Saturday evening coffee house service, I told him, I said, I'm doing something different this morning, or tonight. I said, you're going to help me with the sermon. And I told him that little story I just told y'all, and I gave him advance warning. I said, the first question I'm going to ask you is, what makes practicing prayer on a meaningful, regular basis, what makes it difficult for you? What are the challenges? What are the obstacles? So those of you online, a lot of you online this morning, put that in the comment section. Like, if I say something before you can type it, just type what you have anyway, because that repetition is going to teach us that this is going to be an obstacle for a lot of us. So one of the people, he just said it seems kind of monotonous to me. He says, I'll do it, but it's just not exciting. I said, well, so do you say it's boring? He goes, yeah, I'd kind of say it's boring. There's a woman that talked, and she said that she really wants to do it, but she feels she has a lack of discipline in her life that prevents her from doing it. Young man that was there, young adult, he said to him it seemed like it was too rigid and too formal, and it was too much like a checklist. Now this next one I wouldn't have thought of, but I can understand why the person said this. She said, I just don't see the results. I prayed for something and it didn't happen. There's a woman I know really well, and she said that she said lack of time. So I looked at her, and this is the last time she's ever going to volunteer any information in a public worship service. I looked at her and I said, well, you're you run half marathons, right? She goes, yeah. So you got time to run an hour a day, but you don't have time to pray? And I wasn't picking on her, because we're all, this is a human thing. It's not about her. We could substitute any activity, playing games on our phone, watching television, whatever it is. There's a guy who said he has the inability to focus, which amazed me because, and he's a good friend of mine, known him for 15 years, and he is professionally one of the most focused people I know. He's a researcher at the medical center, and his specific area of research is medications and how they interact with the phone. So I actually asked him, I said, so do you have problems when you're pumping out these papers and this research? And he goes, no problems at all. So these are things that we're going to look at the next few weeks. How is it that we overcome these obstacles? We're not going to hit all of them today. So we got this product I'm trying to sell. It's prayer. So as I was kind of creating this sermon, I said, I wonder if this sermon kind of ends up let me ask you a question. Have any of you ever went to Costco or online at Amazon, bought a big piece of exercise equipment that's really heavy and you have to put it in your basement? Anybody? So I know some of you have, because they got to be selling this stuff to somebody. So when you got that, have you used it every day since you got it, or do you use a little bit up front and then kind of just sits down there, then you have to put on the Facebook marketplace and someone comes and picks it up and it's their problem after that. So like, this is like that exercise bike, right? Like it's doable. Like there's people that have a great prayer life. They can do it. You can do it. But if you don't use it, it's not going to do you much good. So I want you to just a couple parameters. This is serious stuff. It's not today's stuff. This is over the next 3 weeks. I don't want you to leave here feeling guilty. Like, guilt cannot be your motivation for prayer. If you leave here thinking, Pastor Craig made me feel guilty that I don't pray, therefore I have to pray, that's not going to work. Guilt cannot be the primary motivation for any relationship. You know, you'll do it a couple days, you'll get frustrated, you'll quit. So just know that I'm doing this sermon this morning because most people don't have the prayer life that they want to have. You know, some of you, if you would rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, you might be a 1 or a 2, and that's totally fine. It's where you're at right now. You know, how do we move you to like a 3 or a 4 by the end of these 3 weeks and give you some tools that number can continue to grow throughout the year? And you know that, well, there's some of you that you got this. There's some of you that you should be up here teaching because your prayer life is far superior to mine. And I would still say, like, how do you go from an 8 to a 9? Or how do you go from a 9 to, like, just so close to Jesus? Like, last week, you know, I said George Whitefield, if he was asked if he would see John Wesley in heaven, and the two didn't agree on some things, and George Whitefield said, no, I'm not going to see John Wesley in heaven because John Wesley is so close to Jesus that the light from Jesus is going to be blinding, and, like, how do we have that type of relationship? Now, the second thing, we're not going to guilt ourselves into it, and don't leave here feeling guilty. Leave here feeling hopeful. This is a place of hope. This is not a place of guilt. The second thing is you're not gonna persevere and like have this meaningful prayer life like if you treat it like a to-do list item. You know, you can't like grit your way and power your way like through to a great prayer life. Prayer isn't so like of this first section before I talk about like what we're talking about today. Like just hear this, okay? Prayer isn't the product of gritting our teeth. Prayer is the product of falling in love. It's not a to-do list item that is an activity. Prayer is a real relationship, not a tedious task. A loving person and a loving God having honest and authentic communication. That's what prayer is. Now, there's 3 things we're going to be looking at in the next 3 weeks. There's outward prayer. This is prayer like, going to pray for Joe, and you get loose. You guys are getting married next week, right? Yeah, I'll be there. What time is it? Just so, like, we'll pray for them because they're getting married. We'll pray for Corey because he's laughing, and, like, I don't want you to, like, lose the water you were just drinking, and you know, but like, we'll pray for people that have COVID. We'll pray for like whoever. And like, if you want to really connect to somebody, pray for them. Like the person you're sitting by them, if you want to have a better relationship with that person, and you ask me what to do, the first thing you do is you just pray for them. When you pray for someone, God does amazing things in your heart, and it connects you to people in ways that nothing else will. One of the weeks we're going to look at inward prayer. This is discovering who we are. You know, outward prayer, it connects us to others. Inward prayer, it helps us love ourselves well, and it helps us discover who we are. You know, this isn't new stuff, like, you know, like words now in social sciences and all that kind of stuff. It's like authenticity and vulnerability. And like Brene Brown did not invent these words. Like she packaged them very well, and she's very insightful, but these are words that have been around forever. Inward prayer helps us become our true, authentic self. And then there's upward prayer, and this helps us discover who God is. This is direct communication between us and God. Like we're thanking God, we're praising God, we're being real with God. So I asked the group last night, and I want you to think about this, and those of you online, tell us what is your most common form of prayer. There's no right answer, there's just your answer. So is it upward, straight to God? that vertical relationship between you and him? Is it inward? You're discovering who yourself is, or is it outward? You're connecting yourself and praying with others. So for all of you who are here, what do you think the most common answer was last night? So you said outward, and that's the correct answer. About 60% of the people, and just kind of think where you, and this means something, like think where you are on the spectrum. About 60% of the people said the most comfortable, the most common form I have of prayer is praying for other people, and I celebrate that. That you're like praying on behalf of other people is a wonderful thing. So what do you think the second most common method of prayer was last night? So Nicole, you said inward, right? So 30% of the people said inward. Lord, help me discover myself, help me be real, help me heal. Beautiful prayer. I mean, like what you're doing there, it's not selfish at all. What you're doing is you're creating your best self, which then you're going to give to the world. Praying for yourself, inward prayer is not selfish. Inward prayer is like your gift to the world. You're becoming healthy and you're offering that health to the world. And there was two in the back, and I was one of them, and there was one other, I think, that upward prayer was like our most sort of prayer. So I'm going to give you all the choice. Which of the three sermons do you want to hear this morning? If you want inward prayer, raise your hand. Okay. 2. If you want outward prayer, raise your hand. Okay, about 5. If you want upward prayer, raise your hand. That's good because that's the sermon I prepared this morning. I was kind of worried about that. I was going to have to wing it, even more so than I usually do. So we're going to look at upward prayer this morning. Now, we're going to talk about 3 things. Before I talk about the 3 things, though, there's something you got to know. Like, I don't want you to go home and do all 3 of these things, because I think it's going to be too much, and I think you're going to struggle. What I want you to do, and I'm going to say something this morning that resonates with you, and I really hope maybe like it's just one of the things you say, I can do this one. I can do this one this week. I can do this one today. I can do this one tonight, and I'm going to focus on this one. Some of you might have something else that I speak to you, and that's like what you're going to do. And like, what I'm trying to do is like, you're not going to be like, go from like a 2 to a 10 today just because you hear this message. Like, this is something that we're going to take home to Hawthorne and Bellbrook and Falling Waters and Cattail Creek and wherever you go. And just like gradual improvements, like, so that prayer becomes like this loving conversation that we just can't wait to have. So one of the questions, Wesley's questions in the challenge, and if you haven't started that yet, just pick it up on your way out. Does anyone remember the question from yesterday? I loved it. I thought it was a great question. I know the days run together, but the question yesterday was this. Wesley asked the people, are you enjoying prayer? Let's think about it. Are you enjoying prayer? Like, if it's a to-do list item that like we're doing out of guilt, like there's a pretty good chance you're not going to enjoy it. And there's certain parts of prayer that are a little bit more challenging. Like, we got 2 very serious like health situations in our church right now, and I've been praying for these 2 young women like a lot. Like, they're both, one's like in her 30s, one's a high schooler, and they're both dealing with like this devastating form of cancer. I can't say that I enjoy that. It's great work, and I'm going to keep doing it, and I'm going to keep doing it until God tells us to, not keep doing it. But I think like with this upward prayer, though, that this is enjoyable stuff. Like, this is good stuff. It's fun stuff. It's like talking to a friend. Does anyone talk on the phone anymore? Just like a real quick show of hands. Like, you actually talk on the phone and not like so Sam, you talk on the phone, right? So do you like talking on the phone? Is your name Sam, Corey? Corey, got it. So this is the girl behind you, okay? No, just so why do you like talking on the phone, Sam? You catch up, you reconnect. Corey, why do you like talking on the phone? So, that's what this is like. So this is what I want us to think about upward prayer, like just talking to a friend, reconnecting. I love what you said there, like catching up. So number 1 is going to be give God gratitude. This is the first way that I understand upward prayer. So when we, let's just talk person to person. We'll talk person to God in a second. So person to person, what happens when we thank somebody? That does something good in us, right? So there's one of David's teachers. He's an 8th grade student at Russell. I thought this person went like well above and beyond what I thought was reasonable for a teacher to do. Totally exceeded all my expectations of how they would have handled the situation and how they helped him. So I sat down and I typed this teacher an email, and it wasn't like 2 lines. I put some thought into it, and I said, I know this is a really tough year. You got the mask, you're talking into a camera. I can't imagine all that you're going through. There's rules and regulations, you gotta clean. And you really helped my son in a way that was like meaningful to him, and because it was meaningful to him, it's meaningful to me. And don't know if you get a lot of feedback, good or positive, but this is good feedback, and thank you. Like, so for me, the sender, when I hit the send button, that was a gift. And there's been times I wish I would have thanked people, and I didn't. Trust me, like, I'm not perfect at this. I'm learning. But when you hit the send button, like, you look in the eye and you just have the conversation, like, it's a blessing to express gratitude to another person. It's a blessing for the relationship. Like, Betty and I worked out the other night, and we went to Panda Express, right? I didn't know it closed at 9:30, and we got there like 9:29. I hated to be that guy. But they got us the food a little bit later. We, paid for it and ate it. And at the end, he just looked at me and he said, "Thank you. That was really kind of you to, buy me this meal." And so for me then, as the recipient, that was a blessing. And it also helped the relationship. Like, I got this kid that's thankful, and to me that means a lot. So gratitude is good for the giver, gratitude is good for the recipient, gratitude is good for the relationship. So now let's move this to our relationship with God. Remember, this is not a to-do list item, this is a conversation between a loving person and a loving God. So I wrote this prayer the other day for this sermon, and it's very short, so I'll just listen to it. And as I read this short little prayer, just think about what this would do in the life of the one who prays it. So the prayer is this: God, I thank you for the house I live in, and the heater in my house, and the covers on my bed, because it's cold outside. So what does that prayer do for the prayer? Well, what it does is it moves us from the place of envy. If I could have a house anywhere, it'd be like on Malibu Beach, and I'd have a computer and I'd write books, I'd live happily ever after. But that's not where I live, and I can focus on me not living there, or I can say, God, thanks for the heater, thanks for the blanket, like, I'm blessed and grateful. So instead of envy and scarcity, like where a lot of us live, all of a sudden prayer moves us to a place of contentment and abundance. You don't want to spend your life in the land of envy. You don't want to spend your life in the land of scarcity. You want to spend your life in the land of abundance and the land of contentment. Now, just think about how this is good for the relationship. It increases our experience with God. So here's a second prayer I wrote for this sermon. God, thank you for forgiving my sins. I thank you for second chances. I thank you for the fresh start every morning. So what does that do then with the relationship? When you pray like this, what's going to happen is your relationship with God is going to grow, because all of a sudden there's more trust in your relationship with God. There's more stories in your relationship with God. There's going to be more grace that's experienced, because when you say, like, God, thank you for the forgiveness of sins, that at least means we're trying to accept this forgiveness that God gives to us. So you have a lot of choices every morning when you wake up, and one of the choices, and I would think one of the most probably important 5 choices you're going to make every day, is you can choose to be grateful, or you can choose to be like envious and entitled. Like, you got that choice. And I don't believe the gratitude is the default. I think the default in our culture is envy and entitlement. But don't choose that. Like, envy's bad, entitlement's worse. So gratitude begins as an attitude when you wake up in the morning. It's a choice that you make. And then because of the choice that you make, your words are going to be filled with gratitude. And because your words are filled with gratitude, then all of a sudden your actions are going to be filled with gratitude. And because your actions are filled with gratitude, pretty soon your character is going to be filled with gratitude. And as far as your character goes, you're not going to do much better than being grateful. So Paul writes, be thankful. You guys got to help me out with that fourth word, all right? Be thankful in all circumstances. For this is Christ's will for you. It's God's will for you that in all circumstances, like we're grateful people. Like we are more blessed than we think we are. 2 weeks ago, I tried to convince some of us that we're actually more entitled than we think we are, and I still stand by that. But I want you to know that we're more blessed than we think we are, because what entitled people do, they do two things. They complain and they take things for granted. So have you ever heard anybody with a vocabulary like this? Like, oh man, it is cold and miserable out there. Wednesday inauguration, Wednesday, Thursday, I don't even know when it is. Like Wednesday is going to be a mess. Like I don't even want to watch TV. The refs, they messed up in that game yesterday. I'm still recovering from my kids being home on Friday during that snow day. Or what about this one? I haven't got my stimulus check yet. And like my college kid, he doesn't even get one. What's up with that? Whose brilliant idea was that? That's what an entitled person says. Paul says, be thankful in all circumstances. This is God's will. So here's a prayer of a grateful person. Here's the thoughts of a grateful person. And I've been thinking about this all week. Don't get me wrong. Like people around here will tell you sometimes I complain, like I'm human. But me and my best, like here's what I'm thinking. Like God, my son Benjamin gets to be home an extra month from college, and it's great having him around. God, there is so much food in my house that I had trouble deciding on what I was going to have for lunch yesterday. God, I got this computer that makes life so much easier. I wrote this when I was looking outside in our basement. And I said, God, I look at this backyard, and it's just filled with so many memories. That was my best to be a grateful person. And you can get your phones out and take a picture of this one. You can either speak and show gratitude, or you can live under entitlement's curse. And here's entitlement's curse. Entitlement will mess up your interpersonal relationships faster than anything else. And entitlement will destroy your relationship with the sacred and the holy and the divine faster than anything else. Gratitude is the opposite of that. Paul says, every time I think of you. Now, I'm going to challenge you on this one, all right? So Paul planted this church in Greece. He's writing him a letter, and he says, every time I think of you, I give thanks to my God. So most of you have come here with someone. If you haven't come here with someone, there's someone in your heart, and I want you to think of that person. Instead of criticizing and nitpicking and micromanaging, what if our first thought was this? Every time I think of you, I give thanks to God. What if, our desire for their perfection was just replaced by gratitude for this special gift that we have? I would encourage some of y'all to pray together. It's awkward language at first. I get that, because it's so intimate. But whether it's a family at a table at mealtime or two spouses before you go to bed at night, try it. Every time I think of you, I give thanks to God. So you can either choose gratitude or you can experience exhaustion. The most grateful people I know are some of the most energetic, proactive, life-giving people I know. The entitled, envious people, that stuff wears you out. You got the choice, choose gratitude. All right, number 2, remember rest. So you don't have to raise your hand, but is anybody in here tired? There's so many different ways to interpret that question too, right? You'd be physically tired, you just haven't been sleeping very well. You could be emotionally tired. you're tired of being sad. You're tired of being worried. You're tired, like, relationally. Like, you want to see your grandparents, but they just don't feel comfortable being around people. Or they don't feel comfortable traveling. You could be tired of fighting. You could be tired of the conflict. You could be tired of, like, being undervalued. Like, so are you tired? Yeah, some of us are tired some of the time, and all of us are tired some of the time. So Wesley, remember last week I said the most common sermon he preached was on the text, what does it profit to gain the whole world but forfeit your soul? Because there's nothing that's worth more than your soul. The second most common sermon that he would have preached throughout his career, he preached 40,000 sermons, was on this text from Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. And here Jesus says, and you've heard me talk about this before many times. If you looked at the text I preach on, this is in the top 5. Jesus says, come to me. So I don't even have to look at the screen on this one. I got memorized. It's such good stuff. Come to me, all of you who are tired, all of you who are weary, all of you who are carrying heavy burdens. Come to me, and I'll give you rest. Now, we're tired for different reasons. Some of them are good reasons. You got like 8 kids, I'd be tired too. I got 2, they wear me down. Just because you're tired, it doesn't mean you're bad, but like some of us are actually making destructive and self-destructive choices that have caused us to be tired. And to all of us, like here's what Jesus says. He continues in verse 29. Take my yoke upon you. Now there's something in here he says I want you to concentrate on. That's these next 4 words. Let me teach you. So Jesus says, like, your sins are forgiven. Some of you are tired because you're carrying around so much guilt and resentment. Like, forgiveness has just not been part of your life. Some of you are tired because you're just not doing the things that Jesus wants us to do. You're not being the person that Jesus wants us to be. And he says, let me teach you because I'm humble and I'm gentle at heart. And here so you can find rest for your soul. So I started coaching clergy like 4 or 5 years ago, and I had to take this class. I became like this certified coach with this Coach Federation thing. And this guy, no, he doesn't come here. We're on a board together, and he knew that. And he called me up one day. He actually texted me, and he said, hey, will you coach me? I'm dealing with some issues. And I replied, no. He says, why not? I said, well, I don't like coach clergy. He says, well, I'll pay you $150 an hour. I said, I'm free tomorrow morning. So we just had to meet like 3 or 4 times. He's a good guy, fascinating man. He runs a company downtown. We met the first time at a place downtown. It was a restaurant. And like I said, what do you want to talk about? And like he said, I'm just tired. Like I wake up, I'm tired. I go to bed, I'm tired. I come here, I'm tired. I leave, I'm tired. Pick up my kids from school, I'm tired. I'm just tired all the time. And I asked him a question. That's like what coaches do. And I said, so when's the last time you haven't felt tired? I was trying to figure out like some behavior that, he's done that's given him life. And so in the middle of this crowded place, like he looked at me and I could like see his eyes were tearing up, and he just looked at me and said, I don't know. I can't even remember the last time that I wasn't tired. He's probably in his mid-50s, on a second marriage. So he has kids older than mine, but he also has kids younger than mine. And there was like too much at stake, like not to have a good rest of the conversation. So he developed a plan. That's what I helped him do. And he was going to take like 3 of the next 4 Fridays off and just do things that was going to feed his soul, do things that give him energy, do things that he wanted to do. So we met a month later, and I said, how'd it go? And he said, I couldn't get away from the office. I said, well, I got your business card, and like it's got your name, and then like behind your name there's a comma, and then behind the comma there's this word president, And that means that, like, you can set your own schedule. So we talked about something else, and he went back to taking 3 Fridays off. He says, I'm going to do it this time. And meet with him 2 months later. He took 4 of the 3 Fridays off. He did every week. And he went to, volunteer somewhere. And, him and his wife went to the zoo, and he went hiking one day. I said, how do you feel? He said, I feel a little bit better. Because I'm putting rest into my schedule. Now here's where I want to go with this, okay? After God created everything, from the aardvark to the zebra, what did God do on the 7th day? He rested. He took a day off. Now, Jesus, I'm just giving you one example. I could have picked probably 40 examples throughout the Gospels. This is not an isolated incident. So in Mark chapter 1, verse 35, in the morning, while it was still very dark, Jesus, got up and went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed. Now, Jesus needed frequent retreat and solitude to do his work. Now, what astounds me is that we think that we can do without the very thing that Jesus deemed as so essential. So I don't know where you are on the spectrum of fully energetic and alive and well to tired to even worn out to even burned out. I don't know where you are on that spectrum. But I'm going to just lead us in a moment of prayer. I really hope this prayer doesn't really apply to you. I hope that you do feel rested. I hope that you feel energetic. I hope that the last 10 minutes of your life, that it didn't mean a whole lot because it doesn't apply to you. But for those of us who are tired, let's pray. So God, there are many of us here who are tired. We do carry heavy burdens. Lord, sometimes we feel like we're overcommitted and under-resourced. God, sometimes we're just tired of making mistakes or hurting other people. God, we might be tired emotionally or physically. We're maybe tired of being out of balance. God, I'm guessing there's probably some of us here who are tired of pretending someone we're not. We're tired of being distant from you. God, just help us to come to you and help us to experience this rest. Lord, I know there's some of us here who are carrying heavy burdens, real heavy burdens. Heavy burdens from our past that still hurt us. Heavy burdens from today that are preventing us from being fully present. Lord, some of us are carrying burdens from tomorrow, like worries and fears and anxieties that may never materialize. Lord, our souls, they might be restless. We might be longing for more peace. Maybe we just can't be still and experience your presence. Lord, maybe some of us here, we struggle with patience and we're finding it difficult to wait. Lord, wherever we are, help us to come to you and give us rest. Remove any obstacles between us and you. Lord, give us the wisdom that we can do more and be more with you than without you. Lord, teach us to love and be loved by you, and help us to, as your people, pray. So God, help us to come to you, and we just cling onto that promise that you'll give us rest. So Lord, we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so the third of three things is going to be adoration always. So who in here grew up in the Catholic Church? So this would be a word that's familiar with you, right? Adoration, it's part of your theology, it's part of your culture. This would be a very important word to the Catholics. This would have been a very important word to Wesley. Remember, he was originally in the Church of England, which was just basically Henry VIII's divorce away from, still remaining Catholic. So I'm going to tell you a story. It's a story of 2 women. It's a mom and a teenage daughter. They were having some deep conflict. They came in and talked to me. This was a while back. So they brought their conflict into the office. They were just real with each other, and we're trying to help them. And so all of a sudden, we weren't going anywhere. And I just said, okay, we're going to take a time out. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to look at each other. And I want you to tell the other person 5 things that you just love about them. Now, we're not thanking them for anything specific here. That was gratitude. That was the first part of the sermon. Adoration is like we're telling God attributes about God, and this is not to like build God's ego. God is fine without your adoration. This is for us, so we become more aware of who God is. And when we can become more aware of who God is, we can become more aware of who we are. So I told the 2, I said, just you got to say 5 things about the other person that you just love about them. So neither of them wanted to be first. I wasn't going anywhere. I was just sitting there. So the mom finally went, and she looked at me, and she started talking. And I said, don't look at me. Like, look at your daughter. So she looked at the daughter, and she said, you know, like, daughters, I'm probably putting her like 15, 16 years old. And she said, you're just like this creative person. You always have been. I remember when you were little, you're always like thinking of new things. And I just see that like you're just like this creative person. And she said, like, you're a great big sister. Your little brother and your little sister, they just adore you. And you're always almost like a second mom to them. And that's just really cool. And she said, I see why your friends love you. Like, you know, you're just the life of the party, and you care, you listen. Yeah, I love it when the kids come over, and I just see the way people think about you, and I just love that about you. And she said her 2 more things, and then the daughter, like, said her 5 things. Now, it's nothing that I did. I didn't say, okay, do these 3 things, you know, come back in 2 weeks, and things will be a little bit better. I didn't do that. You know, all there was an environment where both people got to share how they love the other person. And that 5 minutes of their life, like, that changed things. They left in a totally different place than when they came, because they got to understand how the other person felt about them. Now, adoration, what it means is that we're not shocked or surprised or startled by God's goodness. And we have no choice but to be fully present in the morning or in the moment. So with adoration, I remember like there's this woman that just went through a really tough season. I was talking to her, and you know, she came in and saw me. This was about a month or so ago, and like her life had totally changed. She said, I'm getting along better with my husband. I'm, you know, getting out. I'm doing things. And I was listening to her story, and I always sit in the same place in the conference room. I love to sit in the back wall so I can always like look outside. I don't know why, I just love to look outside. And there could have been a hot air balloon out there. There could have been a fire truck, and I would have been completely oblivious, because this woman was telling me a story of how God has changed her life, and I could not help but to be fully present. Now, you and I actually witness like God moments every day. Now, sometimes it's tough for us to practice this adoration because we're preoccupied with things that we need to get done tomorrow. You see, I'm selling Jesus, I'm selling prayer, and the competition's name is distraction. You know, we're more concerned about like football scores in real time than we are like seeing a real human moment change. You know, we're more consumed with creating a near perfect image of ourselves than we are experiencing the grace of a perfect God. An addiction to distraction, and I think this is an addiction, or at least a compulsion that many of us have, an addiction to distraction is the death of adoration. It really is. You can read the Psalms. I don't think you can read one of the 150 Psalms without hearing the words of adoration. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. So I'm done. Now here's where the story continues. You're going to get in your car. You're going to drive to Hawthorne or Bellbrook or Falling Waters or Cattail Creek or Aspen Creek or wherever you happen to live. Those of you online, you're going to turn your computer off and you're already going to be on to your next task. I've sold you a product I think you want to buy. So let's buy into the product. Let's take ownership on this one and just do one of the three things. Maybe for some of you, like when you wake up, like the first words out of your mouth are going to be like, God, I thank you for another day. I thank you for the opportunities. Maybe the last words out of your mouth are, dear Lord, like today wasn't perfect, but it was good. And I just thank you for all that you did. Like maybe that's your language. That's your prayer vocabulary this week. Maybe some of you, like that guy downtown, maybe there's some time that you need to schedule for yourself this week. It's not a selfish thing. It's a very generous thing that this is going to allow you to rest and then give your best self to others and give your best self to God and be a healthy person. Maybe that's your prayer step this week. And then for some, maybe it's adoration. Maybe it's just like being fully present and pausing and saying, God, like, you're forgiving. Like, you're this wonderful creator. This world is your idea, and in this world, terrible things are happening, but beautiful things are happening, and I thank you for every last one of those beautiful things. So let's go to God and let's pray. Lord, this is not the end. It's the end of a sermon. It's the end of a worship service, but it's not the end of our journey. And Lord, for some of us, it's the beginning. For some of us, we're recommitting right now, and we're gonna try this prayer thing again. Lord, for some, this is a regular, natural, normal part of your life, and we just want it to be more normal and more regular and more better. Lord, as your people, we do come to you, and we thank you. We thank you that you have blessed us in so many ways, and God, we confess that some of the times we've taken that blessing for granted. Lord, move us away from entitlement, move us away from envy, move us to the joy that comes from being grateful people. And God, I pray that when we wake up tomorrow morning, that we're going to make a choice, and one of those choices is going to be gratitude. Lord, I know that there's some people who are pretty darn tired here this morning. I hear their stories, I see their faces. God, I pray that even right now we can just find rest in you. Rest that the world doesn't depend upon us. Rest that there's hope that things are going to be okay. Rest that there's the forgiveness of sin, that we don't have to be perfect. We can just be authentic. Lord, help us to find rest in you, and Lord, help us to be proactive and co-create times of rest and reflection and renewal so that we can be healthier people for you and for those who love us. And God, we just come with words of adoration. Help us to be present so that we don't miss what you're doing in this world. God, if we could just sit down and say 5 things about who you are. We just see you as the author of hope. We see you as that anchor in a world that has some pretty rough seas. Lord, we see you as the victor in the end. And Lord, even though things might not seem the greatest right now, in the end, you're the one who's going to be standing. And God, for choosing us to be on your team, we're just grateful. So Lord, we leave this place now, and God, I pray that when we go to our places, that we're just going to do our best to have this loving relationship with you, this conversation with you, where we can just be real and authentic, and where we can just fall more and more in love with you every day. So God, together now in one voice, we come and pray the prayer that Jesus taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Well, thank you guys for joining us this morning. We've got a lot of stuff going on during the week, too. We'd love to have you join us. There's We University, all those adult classes. Youth group is back up and running on Wednesday nights, and We Kids is actually going to start up some weeknight activities as well. So stay tuned to social media, the web, for all of those. We'd love to help get you connected to some of those weekday activities. And we just wanted to take a quick second here at the end of the service to thank you all for your generosity. And none of these programs and classes and groups and kids ministry happens without your generosity. So thank you so much for all of that. If you would like to give, you'll notice there's offering right out in the front entryway. You can also give online or recurring gifts with EFT. If you go to weomaha.com, there's a give button right there on the front page. It's quick and easy. And we thank you guys for your generosity and all the things that allows our church to do. So next week, we're going to continue the challenge. We're going to continue talking about prayer and how we can improve our prayer lives and grow closer to God and to each other. So hope you all have a great week, and we'll see you next Sunday at the Water's Edge.